How's it going, guys? This is Twister and today I'm back with another GTA Online video. Now, after buying the two new Cunning Stunts rally cars, I wanted to test them out on a proper rally track to see what is the fastest rally car in GTA Online. So that's what I did. I made myself a simple little rally track and then drove the Omnis, the Tropos, the Kuruma and also the Sultan RS around the track. I didn't really need to do the Sultan RS because there's really no competition, but the results for the other three sports cars were pretty interesting, so we'll actually get straight into it. Now, the first car that I tested was the Omnis, and it became obvious just after a couple laps that this thing was an absolute beast. I'm not necessarily saying that it's the quickest. You'll see the other lap times for the Tropos and the Kuruma afterwards, but this handled like a dream. It handles like a rally car should, in my opinion. It's an all-wheel drive monster based off of the old Audi Quattro, iconic rally car of course, and it handles the dirt pretty damn well. It gets so much speed from the acceleration shooting around the corners. It doesn't necessarily have the most grip, it doesn't necessarily handle smoothly across the bumps of the dirt, but it drives like a rally car should. You can get the rear end out if you want to do some slides across the dirt, but any kind of tight section, especially this uphill section where you're braking into the corners, getting the rear end out a bit, turning it in and then shooting out of the corners with that all-wheel drive system, it grips so well and accelerates really nicely on the dirt track. And honestly, like I said, it handles like a rally car should. If you really want to feel the terrain of the off-road tracks up in Blaine County in the Sandy Shore section, this is the car that you want to go to. It's honestly not too hard to drive. I really managed to get into it after a few laps, and that 127 isn't really a bad lap time. And for the way the car drives and handles off-road, it really is such a nice car. If I had to compare it to any other car in the game, it would probably be the Zentorno, because it really does reward that aggressive driving style. You can really slide it into the corners. The oversteer can pretty easily be corrected, and then it'll find that grip again, and then you'll shoot out of the corners with its mad acceleration. So there's the Omnis, wonderful car to drive, and it feels absolutely amazing off-road. So now on to the Tropos, and honestly, I was pretty blown away because I did the Omnis first and then the Tropos. This got a best lap of 126.988, so only 0.2 quicker. There's barely anything to separate this car, and at first there was nothing to separate these cars. After 15 laps in both of these cars, they got an identical lap time of 127.355, so I thought I'd do 8 more laps to see if there was anything that could separate these two cars, and ultimately the Tropos I think can be ever so slightly quicker off-road, and for completely different reasons. The Tropos is so smooth on the dirt. It doesn't get unsettled by the bumps at all, to be honest, and it just grips the dirt like crazy. So any kind of long corners on the dirt, you can carry a lot of speed around them. It doesn't handle as well on the twisty sections where you kind of need the power to accelerate through them, or even the high speed twisty sections either, because it can understeer a lot on you. It doesn't feel as agile as the Omnis, but because of its traction and how much it really can grip the dirt, it can get quicker times. And honestly, it was a lot harder to get that faster time out of the Tropos than the Omnis, but when you are pushing it to the limit, I think honestly you can go slightly quicker, but honestly it's not by much, 0.2. I couldn't separate them after 15 laps, so honestly out of the two of them it just comes down to whichever one you are most comfortable driving. But in general, I found with the Tropos, you had to kind of be gentle with it, throttle control around the corners, and it will find the grip, and that's how you get the speed with this car, because its rear-wheel drive system doesn't compare to the Omnis with its sheer acceleration. Now, I did say that I was going to compare it to the Kuruma, because this car has been for a long time considered the king of off-road rally races, and to be honest, it still is. It got a time of 126.354, which is almost a second quicker than the Omnis, just over half a second quicker than the Tropos, and this thing, it just has the raw power when you take it off-road that the other cars don't. It doesn't handle as good as the Tropos, it doesn't feel as nice to drive as the Omnis, but when you take this thing off-road, it just doesn't lose any of its speed at all. So the raw power that this car has, putting it onto that dirt road, you just get all of that raw power from this car. And again, it's an all-wheel drive, it grips the corners well, but at the same time it is an absolute handful to get it around the corners. It can understeer, sometimes it can oversteer, it can also roll over and get flipped over by the bumps really easy. It's honestly such an unpredictable car to drive off-road, and you really do need to be careful with it, but at the same time it does reward some skill driving with ultimately faster times. The previous two cars do feel a lot more consistent to drive, especially around the corners, but with the Kuruma, as soon as you get it onto a straight, it just has too much speed in the end. But that's not to say that the Omnis and the Tropos aren't viable. I mean, they're all, as you can see by the times, they're all pretty close together, so you can't really say that definitively one will always be better than the other, that the Kuruma will always be faster. Again, it comes down to drive whatever you're comfortable with, but in a lot of situations the Kuruma can utilise some crazy speed on the dirt roads. So there we go, that's it for the fastest rally cars in GTA Online. Now, I did say that I was going to throw in the Sultan RS here, even though there's no competition really. It's not a supercar, so you can't race with the other sports cars. And even if it was a sports car, it's so much slower off-road that honestly, it just can't compete. It feels sluggish, it feels slow, it feels stiff, and honestly, it's not up there with the other three rally cars. So I wanted to do this comparison at the end of the video so you guys can see each car and sort of like where its advantages are, what parts of the track that it's quicker on compared to the other cars. And if you're actually watching the start, the Kuruma was lagging behind the Tropos and the Omnis at the start, but when you get to the uphill section you can really put the power down and it just builds up so much speed from there on out. But yeah, it is interesting to see all these different cars side by side. Even though the Kuruma did come out on top in this video, my first choice rally car will probably be the Omnis, just because I like the way it handles so much compared to the other rally cars. And to be honest, you don't really always have to be driving the quickest car, just drive which ones you enjoy and which ones you think you're the best in. And yeah, hopefully this video was sort of a rough guide to help you make that decision yourself, because at the end of the day everyone's different, everyone's got their own driving style and the cars that they prefer, and ultimately the cars that they're best with, and you can't always just go off the results of one video to make a decision. That decision has ultimately got to come from you. Let me know your thoughts on the cars that I've tested in this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have enjoyed it, make sure you do leave it a like rating, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I'll hopefully see you all in my next video. See you later, guys.